I'll just talk this way, and then that way they'll feel like, you know,
yeah, you're... They just see like my head in the corner.
I think that sounds perfect. Guess what? We're doing short strings today. And the reason I decided to do short as opposed to just all strings is it's almost really like its own kind of category. Most of the time when I'm doing stuff, especially for games, I'm doing short strings and I'm doing long strings. And that means it's either legato or muted or harmonic. Sometimes I even had 2 different passes of long strings. So in the interest of time and ease for researching stuff like this on YouTube, I figured we'll just do short strings this time around. And I'm literally going to start at the top of my palette and work my way down. But first, official hi.
Hi.
Mally says hi. All right. If you want to see a quick overview, I've got Spitfire stuff here at the top. This is in no preference of favorite or anything like that. It's just kind of the way my mind put them into the template. So we've got Spitfire, Cinematic Studio strings. Those are my own strings. Another folder that is kind of all of the less thick libraries. So there's less need for individual folders because they have less patches, and a lot of times I actually prefer that. So CineStrings and Novo, which I absolutely love. Soaring strings, that's actually musical sampling. All the strings from musical sampling are in there. Plus, I believe there's some stuff from Orchestral Tools as well. So short strings, here we go. I thought the easiest way to demonstrate this, and it's not really a layering kind of demonstration. It's also not, let me demo this sample library for you. It's more about my impressions of the libraries and how I like to use them together. I'm planning, and if you want this, definitely let me know, but I'm thinking of doing separate videos for brass and strings and drums and things, specifically on layering, and maybe using cues that I've written in the past and talk about the different libraries and how I layer them together and how they fit. For this, I thought maybe the easiest thing would be just to do a quick phrase and kind of copy the MIDI data between the libraries so we can hear together what they sound like and kind of what their strengths and weaknesses are. And honestly, this is going to be as educational for me as it is for you, because a lot of times, like many people, I'm sure, I default to specific libraries, and I really want to expand my palette a little bit, which is the whole reason for this template. Here, I'm just going to do something so we have... That was nice and... Here, let me do this. I'll put this over here for you. And slappy, slappy. So all I'm really doing here is going for evenness of velocity. So we'll say that's violin 1. You know what, I'm going to skip violin 2 because some libraries don't have violin 2. We're in F. So the basic idea here is this is going to be kind of our template. And I can noodle on patches, but I like having something consistent that we can listen to that gives us a good idea overall of what things are doing. I'm actually going to pull these guys down a little bit. All right, so what we can do didn't want to quantize that. This is Spitfire symphonic strings, or whatever it's called, and it's really, really nice all around kind of more classical sort of sounds. And what I mean by that is they also have some alternate lengths. And you can tell just by playing those two that they're not quite the same velocity or intensity. And when I'm looking for shorts, I love 3 different length shorts. So maybe a super short, kind of a medium, and then one that's maybe the longest would be maybe even shorter than that. But what I really want is the same amount of intensity on all 3 shorts so that I can swap between them in a line. And if the violins are going to play a longer note instead of those staccato 8th notes, it has the same kind of intensity. And I can't really do that with this library. But as you can hear, it does have a really nice sound. I can double up on these. Very nice. Now I'm going to go to, hands down, one of my favorite string libraries. And if I just play this off the top, you'll be able to hear a difference in the sound. Obviously, this is the chamber strings, and it's a lot smaller. I think it's only 4 violins, first and seconds, 4 violas. Don't quote me on that. It's very possible that it's a little different, but just check out their website. Now, the nice thing about these guys so I have it set up with mod wheel control. I'm going between these 3 different articulations, which is basically a short note, a shorter note, and then a dig note. And that's through control clicking, I believe. You can staccato dig. You can modify how you want to staccato and spiccato. So I've got it set to the mod wheel. So this is the mod wheel all the way up, this is the mod wheel halfway down, and this is the mod wheel at the bottom. The idea is this middle one is a slightly longer length. A lot of times I default to the bottom, but sometimes it's nice to have it on the very top as well. Here's the bottom. Here's the top. So it's kind of a nastier sound, which is really nice for some action stuff. But then it's also nice to be able to use the lighter one if you don't want to necessarily have too much bite, but you want to have those chamber strings a lot more up close. What's next? Albion. I'm going to go here because these are my go-to strings, hands down. And a lot of times I like to layer them with chamber strings, so you can hear the difference. Let's back this up and make sure our... Oh, I don't see any volume there. These are automatically set up the way I have my chamber strings set up. So you have a short, mod wheel halfway up, mod wheel all the way up. You hear that little bit of vibrato in there? I love that. And a lot of times these layer with these guys, and that's just the sound that I like. Make sure that the mod wheel's down for both of them. Here's just... And this should be with the chamber string. You can hear how they complement each other because you're getting a little bit more definition from the chamber strings, a little more meat and potatoes from the cinematic studio strings. Now the Albions actually have a whole bunch of different kinds of shorts and longs, and I think they're really nice when you're trying to maybe flesh something out quickly. They've got a lot more top end, and I think they cut a lot better than the Symphony strings up here, symphonic strings. It's almost like they were kind of mixed and EQ'd more for film and TV, and I'll use them quite often as a layer on top of something else. And the lows are the same way. Where are we? Pizzicato. I obviously don't use these as much because I don't have them broken out. Ah, that's Albion 2, no wonder. Albion 1. Oh, full, that's full, right, so. I forgot, it's a full keyboard. Which is great if you're trying to sketch stuff. I am just so classically oriented, I can't help but want to have things split up by section. But that's by no means a criticism of Albion. It's really, really great. Just for kicks, I'll play my strings. Let's see if I can. That's obviously super dry. And I did that on purpose. Actually, my whole entire library is close mics only. And that's strings, brass, woodwinds, everything. And it wasn't... I started it 10 years ago, so it's the kind of thing that if you're editing this stuff by yourself, it's a lot easier just to do one set of microphones. It was so much work just doing one set of mics. And back in the day, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I was using a lot of Vienna as well, which is on that dry stage they recorded. So I was used to adding reverb to kind of get things to gel together. And it made the most sense to me because I started doing things like this on Dead Space, having close mics and then using my own reverb. And actually the way it turns out now is they're great for adding some detail and trying to get some of that like sharpness and attack, which is the way I recorded it anyway. They're all very kind of nasty. And I can use my pre-fader reverb and pull it back a little bit if I want these strings, to sound like they're a little further back. These have a couple of different articulations. I think there's 1, 2. That may be the same, I'm not exactly sure. And I know this is the diggy one. So you can hear that last one. Again, I'm using this with the mod wheel. They were really digging in, and it's nice. It's 8 round robin and 4 different velocity layers. So it really makes it stick out and sound really aggressive, and that's just what everyone seems to be asking for these days. That super kind of aggressive sound. Oh, now we're falling down the rabbit hole into this folder. So, well, here's something that I actually haven't even tried yet, is the Adventure String Shorts. I'm sure they sound amazing. I've only used soaring strings. Oops, I deactivated that instead of... I've only ever used soaring strings, and the adventure and trailer stuff is new in the template. I just haven't had a big chance to use it yet, really, is the only reason. But I bet they sound really nice. So that actually reminds me a little bit of my strings. It's got some nice top end, and I bet that would cut through the mix really well. Now the trailer strings are down here. I see shorts. Sounds like a slightly bigger section, and I think for trailers that's what Aaron was planning, was he had more string players on the trailer strings. What else do we have here? Oh yeah, Inspire. Some nice spiccato. Octaves. I'm not a huge fan of octave patches, because if I want it to be in an octave, I want to be able to just make the violins, first and second violins, play in octaves. But the Orchestral Tools stuff really does cut and sounds really, really nice. And here we just have just a plain violin spiccato instead of octaves. They did a pretty good job giving you a lot of choices. This is all from Arc 3, I believe. Oh, Inspire. Yeah. Nice and meaty, that's right. This is the Inspire strings, which I think is the only Inspire patches I actually have in my template, because it's the only Orchestral Tools library that I don't have is their Berlin strings. So this is sort of my halfway point. They were kind enough to send this to me. Probably the same idea here. That's a super, super short string, which would be useful, but honestly, the Inspire violin spiccatos sounded a little beefier. Let's see what else. CineStrings. These are very well done, recorded at Sony in LA. Just smooth and beefy. So my initial impression hearing that is the same thing I remember now that I thought when I listened to it the first time. So they've got a little bit of top end on them that I think would help with cutting through the mix, but also might be a bit of a problem if you're trying to blend something. Now this is Novo, which is another one of my go-to, especially for shorts and effects. Much warmer and much rounder and beefier. And I'm not exactly sure, but I think they recorded that at Sony as well. They just used a different engineer. Satoshi has been recording Heavyocity stuff for the last couple of years now. I'm a huge fan of his. He came up underneath Alan Meyerson, who, in my opinion, is one of the best film score recording and mixers in the industry. And Satoshi is just as phenomenal. So hopefully you can hear why I love Novo so much. It's just kind of fat and wide, and smooth is a word that comes to mind. Do we have anything else down here at the bottom? Oh, great. Now I know there's shorts in solo strings, but that's probably something that we're going to be recovering. We will be covering separately just the solo strings. Figured next time we'll do long strings, which will include legatos, muted, sustains, crescendos, all that sort of stuff. And then we'll do some solo strings. And I think, do I hear anything? Yes, definitely.